Welcome to Before You Buy, I'm Falcon. Yes, I know, I'm not normally the one that does these, but this is Sonic Mania. I'm basically your resident Sonic weirdo, and if this turned out to be what it said it was, this was kind of the thing that I've wanted for, I don't know, a couple decades now. Somewhere in that neighborhood. But does it live up to the hype? Well, you never get to say this, by the way, but it lives up to the hype. It really, really lives up to the hype. How? Well, let's get into it. Sonic the Hedgehog started as a side-scrolling platforming game that had an emphasis on speed and quirky level design. That is the absolute best description I can give to you for the old Sonic games. And although Sonic has had kind of different iterations since then, there's been 3D Sonic, semi-3D Sonic, Sonic that stays 3D for a while, then goes 2D, then goes 3D, then goes 2D, then Sonic, who is a werehog. I'm not going to get too deep into that one. Basically pretend none of that stuff happened, as well as the sequel to the original Sonic games, Sonic 4, which isn't terrible by any means, but compared to this, it's crackers, if you get my little Sonic fan joke there. So let's start out by saying the physics in this game have been pretty much faithfully recreated, but, and it's a very important but, these have been tightened just a little bit. Sonic jumps just a tiny bit higher, moves a tiny bit faster, I want to say, and there's just some minor little differences. For instance, the game has widescreen, so you see a little bit further ahead. One very specific mechanical difference is the new move, Sonic's Drop Dash, which is activated by pressing the jump button again while jumping and holding it long enough for him to charge basically a spin dash, lands on the ground, and goes forward. It's a move that I am actually loving. That move itself integrates so seamlessly into the level design, which uses verticality in a way that I feel like the old Sonic games didn't. And right there, that's what I want to say is the most immediate difference between old 1990s Sonic games and Sonic Mania. As much as I love the level design in the old games, I have them memorized. I have played these levels so many times as both a child and an adult, and yet I feel more challenged by these levels. And not in a they made a bunch of really difficult levels that I can't beat way, but in a each one of these levels is designed incredibly well and features its own unique challenges way. In truth, if the title Sonic Unleashed had never been used, this would have been the right game to use it on, but Sonic Mania, obviously, still a pretty cool title. The game starts off fairly familiar with Green Hill Zone. I'm not gonna say like it's impossible or anything, it's not like a massive challenge or anything, but compared to previous Green Hill Zones, this one picks up the pace fast. I'm assuming it probably knows that either old gamers who played the original Sonic the Hedgehog games have some experience and want to get into the nitty-gritty of the game much quicker, as well as more new school platform fans who grew up in a world where Sonic is kind of something that's always been around, have a little bit more meat right at the beginning of the game. Now the level set for this game is phenomenal. There's a lot of retreaded ground that you've been already, but certainly the remix nature of the levels is not one that makes you feel like you've been through all of this stuff before. It's all new. It feels like a fresh game, and that's really impressive considering this could kind of feel like a greatest hits package, and it doesn't. It never, ever, like at no point did I feel as if I was retreading too much ground. While at the same time, I now have a way to play a lot of these classic levels without having to plug in a Sega Genesis that frankly doesn't actually go into my TV without a little bit of, elbow grease. Pretty much all the best things from a lot of different Sonic games are present. The structure of the game mirrors Sonic 3 and Knuckles, where the levels are somewhat woven together by actions that take place in sort of quote-unquote cinematics. I say that because it's just the sprites on screen. However, it takes full advantage of the fact this is many generations ahead by giving us these gorgeous pixel art animations of everything that happens. For instance, if Eggman is angry about having failed and is sort of pointing and yelling at robots, you see it, and it feels almost like a cartoon. There's so many frames of animation. It's gorgeous. Like I said, because it mirrors the structure of Sonic 3, there's a mini-boss at the end of Act 1 and a full boss at the end of Act 2. In the remix zones, the first act kind of feels a lot like the original. It obviously expands upon the ideas, and then it just basically goes warp speed for Act 2, basically taking the themes from the level and totally twisting it into these absolutely massive, sometimes Rube Goldberg machine-esque type mazes. For instance, Chemical Plant Act 2 is easily one of my favorite levels in the game, and I absolutely love how they don't just make you run right the whole game. There's something about the fact they make you understand that you might not always run in the same direction. Little touches like this make the gameplay a little bit more varied and feel, in its own ways, smarter than the original games. The special stages are this weird amalgamation of the Sonic CD special stages and little elements from other games' special stages, either mechanically or artistically, and really turn out to be a hell of a lot of fun. I found myself enjoying the special stages more and more, and although on my first playthrough I didn't get all of the Chaos Emeralds, I want to play this game again and again and again. I'll eventually get them. There's also bonus stages, which act like the special stages from Sonic 3, Blue Sphere, if you remember, but they aren't actually tied to any major functions of the game. All they really do is unlock stuff in the extras menu, so if you don't end up loving these, you don't really have to worry about them. I enjoy them and I play them, but I don't do very well in them because they're harder than the originals, if you ask me. There's also Time Attack and Competitive Mode, which are both fun, but let's face it, not the reason you would buy the game. Still, they definitely do add to the replay value. And there's one final thing we have to talk about, and that is the music. From the absolutely gorgeous remix of the original Zone music, to the full-blown remixes of the second act music, to the totally original zones with the best music of all time, I'm looking at you, Studiopolis. The music reflects exactly what's going on in the game, which is combine a lot of old concepts, streamline them, and add a bunch of new ideas that totally work. There are parts that are less exciting but still work, like the Chemical Plant Act 2 boss, which is basically Tetris. But these parts aren't even mediocre, they're still very good, they're just not as good as the rest of the game. And there's very few parts that I would classify as that. The rest of it is just a phenomenal, old school Sonic game that has been brought into the new, both graphically as well as pacing and ideas of the game. This is very much a modern version of the old Sonic the Hedgehog games. And if I'm gonna be completely honest, that's what I've wanted from Sonic since forever. They've done so much to needlessly complicate the Sonic the Hedgehog games over the last decade or so, that just making a simple game that builds on the concepts of the last game, Sonic 3 and Knuckles, or Knuckles Chaotic, splitting hairs, this is it. There's no reason for Sega to make Sonic games that aren't like this, because it's as close to flawless as a Sonic game has been since 1994. If you want nostalgia, there's certainly nostalgia here, but the reason why I care about it so much is that it builds on the original foundation instead of just coasts on it. If the developers didn't do that, this would not have been worth making, but as you might be able to tell, I really think it was worth making. This is a Sonic that should have happened so long ago. This is such a high quality game that brings Sonic into the modern age, if you ask me, without dumping all the things that make all the old games so good. At $20, it's a steal. I highly recommend it. There's no point in not buying this if you think you might like a fast-paced 2D platformer, because it's pretty much the best one out there right now. What do you think of Sonic Mania? Did you play it? If anybody else out there wants to help other people make their buying decisions on this game, please leave a comment. And if you liked what I had to say, please click like. If you're not subscribed, now is a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week, and the best way to see them first is, of course, a subscription. As always, we thank you so much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter at Falcon the Hero, and we'll see you next time right here on gameranx.